I'm Paul Henley with NewsHour live from the BBC. Now, in May 2021, Sri Lanka suffered one of the worst environmental disasters in its history, with a massive container ship, the XPress Pearl, catching fire and sinking off its coast. As it went down, it released tons of toxic chemicals, metal waste and microplastics into the sea. The UN called it the biggest plastic spill ever recorded. The BBC's Liana Hosea reports now, investigating 4 years on, how Sri Lanka is still counting the cost.
In some ways, this was the front line of the XPress Pearl disaster. We're on a small fiberglass fishing boat out in the Negombo Lagoon, which connects to the Indian Ocean on the west coast of Sri Lanka. The waters are muddy green and the banks are lined with mangrove trees. The XPress Pearl sank just a few miles from here off the coast. The fishermen here say what happened in those days 4 years ago changed their lives.
First there was huge smoke, dark smoke over this Negombo Lagoon. I saw a huge ball of fire coming out of the ship. And then the beach was covered with oil, dead turtles and shipping containers. I kind of felt it was the end of the world.
Fisherman Jude Salantha says the fishing industry still hasn't recovered.
We've never had the same amount of fish that we used to catch. And so our lives have turned upside down. And from the stretch where the ship sank up until here, you don't get many new young fish at all.
As the ship burned and went down, it released a toxic cocktail into the sea. There was oil from the ship, but also among its cargo were tons of acid, chemicals, and billions of tiny plastic pellets known as nurdles.
I mean, it's the biggest nurdle disaster ever recorded in the world. Layers of nurdles were washing up. It was like snow on the beaches. Just white everywhere. It was horrifying.
Murutha Katovavala is an environmentalist who volunteered to help with the cleanup.
When they float, a lot of fish will consume them and it doesn't digest, and so it gets stuck inside. You could just imagine how much of marine environment, marine life would have been impacted.
And despite attempts to clean up after the disaster, 4 years on, these plastic pellets are still in the environment. So we're just walking along the beach here and come across these group of women with giant rectangular sieves wearing big rubber gloves, sifting the sand. One of the women tells me that on a daily basis, they collect about 3 kilograms of these nurdles. So what could be the impact of these plastic pellets still swilling around in the sea? There's research that plastic can harm marine life, but there's another concern that these pellets have been contaminated by pollutants in the sea, which may have come from the spill or other sources. Working with local scientists, I sent samples of these nurdles collected over the past 4 years to David Megson, a forensic chemist specialising in environmental pollution at Manchester Metropolitan University.
Some of those plastic pellets were quite heavily contaminated, the ones that were involved in the fire, and they will have leached their pollution into the environment. The plastic pellets that are still going round appear to be sucking up more pollution from the environment and are becoming more toxic.
I mean, are the levels of these toxins that you've found on the plastic pellets sort of harmful to aquatic life?
They were elevated, but it's really hard to do that risk assessment because we don't know how many pellets have been eaten and how much pollution comes off the pellets and what that dose is to the organism. But placed on top of everything else that is in that system, there's a really good likelihood that it's causing harm to the environment and also potentially harm to people relying on that marine ecosystem for a source of their food as well.
The ship owners say they've worked diligently to ensure the best response to the disaster and spent more than $150 million to clear away the wreck, on cleanup and on compensation for fishermen. There are ongoing legal proceedings to determine whether more compensation should be paid and by who. Back on the beach, Murutha says for many communities, the disaster is far from over.
I think it'll persist for a lifetime. Usually plastic pellets remain in the environment for years and years and years.
And you can hear more of Liana Hosea's investigation into the XPress Pearl disaster on assignment here on the BBC World Service or on the documentary podcast.